my mother's side.
No, that's the wrong side. That's the wrong side. 'Cause, no, I'm gonna send them out to him and have, I got some, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have him, 'cause, let me see.
Mm,
1833. Is that right?
well, he was, yeah,
Seems like most of the family lived quite a while. The old people, was there any reason for that, I wonder?
I don't know. His grandfather, he was 6 That was my mother's side.
What was his name?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
he fought in the field.
he fought in the Civil War.
Yeah,
On the Union side or the Confederate side?
he fought against,
Against the South.
and he was living in the South, but he ran off from Alabama
Right off from Alabama.
and went to the North and fought against the Northerners.
Can't make out,
To
can't
free
make
the
out.
slave.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the law all year.
He was in the whole thing.
Yeah. 1861. Well,
That's what I'll do. I'll just, turn that off and, let's come. Let's-
Test Company, Alabama. That's where he was born.
Right, right.
In 1832.
So when he ran off, he won the war.
Well, this, it still would, that, when I listen to it, it sounds like that right there. But I'm in the house and it's not a big, let's see. Can you turn this up at all?
28. But his master allowed them to have a right. And he was married and had 2 children.
So that was rare for a master to let a man
Yeah.
keep his wife.
Right. He was married
Okay.
when the war broke out and had a wife and 2 children.
Let me just,
And was living in Texas.
yeah.
But when the war broke out, they taken all the people from Texas, Alabama, down in Mississippi.
Okay, give me 1 minute and I'll be ready. All right. Yeah, I took notes from that, so I'll have, let's see, I'll put this over here. Glasses, here they are. And I'll get my notes. By the way, I'm gonna send you this these cassettes. Can you alter them a little? I mean, what I mean, not alter them, but can you isolate noise in the background and boost up the sound? So you could you oh, no doubt about it. Yeah, I wanna okay. Now remember, those were made when remember when my father was sick and he spent most of his time in the bed in the last part of his life. Okay, he was in the bed laying down, and that's why there's some of it that's better than that. But anyway, if you can isolate the noise in the background and boost up that sound, I know they okay, that'll be, now that will be beautiful. That will be perfect. Okay, the thing that I'm going to talk about, see, this one they was getting ready to talk about, he's getting ready to talk about the Battle of Vicksburg, Mississippi. Last week, I was watching the History Channel about Grant. I don't know if y'all saw it. There's 3 programs on Ulysses S. Grant. His biggest battle during the war for him was Vicksburg, Mississippi. These old men, well, I'll tell you, I'll start in a minute. These old men in Wabasiki, Arkansas, all fought in that battle. They used to sit down on a bench somewhere and they talked about that battle. You know what old men do. They repeat themselves so much that my father, I don't know if you could tell, when he's mentioning things, he's already old, but he's mentioning the exact year. Old Mr. So-and-so was born in 1833. He got married. He had so many children. And after the war, he run off from Alabama up to somewhere, joined the white folks to come and to fight these other people. And then how they moved. This is a historical document. This is what this is. This is better than any of that Gates stuff and them other Negroes on it. This is secondhand information. This is my father listening to this when he's young over and over again. And guess what your Aunt Dell has or had? My father's, his grandfather, he said, Grandpa, he said, Dell has your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's release papers from the Army. See, all those old men, it would say in there, they got a pension. They got a pension because they fought in that war. And they got a pension all the way up to, some of them didn't die till way up in the 20s, and, they didn't, they was around a long time. I asked about, and I'll get to the point in a minute, Wash Reams. He lived to be 106 years old. And I asked my father on the tape, I say, well, I guess he retired after the war, 65. He said, no, he grew corn, he grew this. And I said, well, when did he stop working? He said he never did. He worked up till he died, and when he was 106 years old. Can you imagine that? And the same thing with all the rest of them. He'll mention somebody, and he said, yeah, he died in 1911. The thing that I realized that I had picked up from my father is that memory of dates, timelines, in exactly where everything fits, because people don't do that naturally. They have to think about, well, when was that? Let's see, and Anyway, just give me another minute, and I'll be ready to go, inshallah. Because I'm going to do a little bit different today. Just give me one more minute here, and I'll be ready to go. Okay, well, let me get started. Because you can edit it the way you want us, instead of taking all this time. I'll go and get started. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can you hear that pretty good? Can y'all hear this pretty good? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. This is our second taping of the Reams family. And at this time, I want to put a few things in context. I was just listening to my father. I had taped him. This was in 1984, sometime in July 1984. And I taped him because it was kind of clear that he was getting close to passing away. And I wanted to get our family history. And, I used to be gone a lot. And I had got bits and pieces. But remember, when I was young, I would go to jail a lot. In fact, when I first saw your father was in September 1957. That's 1 month after your father was born. When I first saw your father, your grandmother and Sherry and them bought your father. He was a little baby, about a month old, because you used to get a visit the night before you went to the penitentiary, and this was on a Thursday night, and I was leaving the next day, and they brought him up, and that was the first time I saw him, because your father was born in August, wasn't he? That's right, as he was born in August, so he was a little baby. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is this. We've had, when I listened to the tape the other night, or this morning, when I listened to this tape, and I have 3 of these tapes, I realized the value of these tapes. And I realized personally that I was getting this information from my father, and he got it directly from all those people back then. And the Library of Congress and a lot of this stuff don't have that exact stuff that he was just saying. Because the part that that really struck me is I was just watching the Battle of Vicksburg on television last week. Ulysses S. Grant. And you know they try to make it kind of real. They mentioned the black troops in there. And they came across the north part. They made rafts. The black people made rafts. And they came, down the Mississippi. They was up above the Confederates. And when they came down, they lost a lot of people. But your Aunt Dale has your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's bayonet that they used and his release papers. Now, if we can get, if our people in St. Louis still have a box with Aunt Dale's papers and stuff in it, she would have his release papers from 1865. Because remember, all of these people my father was talking about was old men that every day they sit up on a bench right there in town and they talked about the Battle of Vicksburg probably over and over and over again. The thing that I talk about most of the time about how when black people was running away in that part of the South, how they would, if it was a cow around, they would make the cow run a little bit. When the cow run a little bit, they always go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? They always S-H-I-T, right? And they would stick, because I asked my father, I said, did they try to hit the river or did they do this? He said, no. He said, Louisiana and Arkansas got turpentine trees. Now, I don't believe nobody heard that from anywhere else, in all this black history. But they used to stick their feet in that doo-doo from the cow because the turpentine tree drips its turpentine down on the grass and the bushes, and the cow eats the grass. It's simple, but that means they had a lot of sense. I got to get away. How am I going to get away? The dog's going to catch me. So, not if you do this. Somebody done told them that they can't smell the turpentine, mess up their sense of smell. And they can't smell the Negroes. Anyway, all of that came through. I had remembered it from my father telling me that years ago. But you don't find that nowhere in black history. They always tried to get to the water and run up the river. Nobody in black history ever said that. But that's what they was doing, and it was well known at the time. The other thing is that my father told me that our oldest relative, Wash Reams, had 17 boys and 3 daughters. He had 17 boys and 3 daughters. Now, the thing about our family is that it seemed like people lived a long time. One of the people that he was just talking about that ran off to fight up and that come back to fight, he was born in 1833 and he died in 1911. So that's a good 80-something years. That's pretty good. This was one of our relatives. He was one of our relatives that the slave master allowed him to get married. Okay, they got married, but he run off to fight in the war in 1861. And he didn't find his family till 1869. So after, it took him 5 years to find his family. You have to remember, as it said, the people that was in Alabama, the slave master moved some of the people south, like to Natchez, Mississippi, and then moved some of the other ones to Louisiana. They're pushing them farther and farther south so they don't get freed and liberated. As this is going on, some of the family members ran off to go up and join the army. You know, it was over 200,000 black troops by the end of the Civil War. And guess what? I don't know how many, I don't have the exact number, but a lot of our family members fought in the Civil War. They actually fought in it. And the old men that was sitting around up there on the bench in Wabasiki, year in and year out, talked about those old battles. One of their friends, they talked about that he didn't get no pension because he joined the army, but he said he laid down by a log and let them go by, and he run off and stayed in the woods till the war was over. That's what they said. So he said out of all those people up there, he's the only one that didn't get a pension. He didn't get a pension because they also said that the biggest battle that they participated in was Manassas Gap and Vicksburg. Manassas, they might be talking about the Battle of Manassas. They have a battlefield. The battle, you might have heard about the Battle of Bull Run. Bull Run is a little stream out there by Manassas. That's 40 or 50 miles from here. The first big battle in the Civil War was the Battle of Manassas. They had Battle of Manassas I and Battle of Manassas number 2. But 1861, and it seems like that they had run off by that time and they was up here to fight, and he said it was Manassas Gap. Well, that's the only Battle of Manassas that I know. 1 and 2 was right out here in Northern Virginia. And Vicksburg, that was 1863. Okay, so the part I'm going to deal with now, I'm going to pass on a lot of the particular family history because I want to go right now into something that's going on right now. And some of the demonstrations that we had and we've been a part of is that we've recorded a lot of the things that we've been participating in the last few days, during the last week. The purpose of it was to have a teach-in type environment. Teach-in is what they had in the 60s, and they had them on campuses at universities and what have you. And the teach-in was to teach the people where we are now. You know, what is the status? What is the environmental circumstances that we're living on? In other words, issues of today. Where are we now? Why are we here? Why are we having these demonstrations and what have you? Why are we doing what we're doing now? So it was to instruct the people, to organize the people, to give the people focus, to give the people direction. Where do we want to go? Now the interesting thing is it's better to know where you want to go and not know how to get there than how to get there and not know where. In other words, now let me explain that to you. Sounds like a riddle. The system, the government, the people, they have the ability to do almost anything they want. Like in our organization, they infiltrate the organization, they build it up, and it'd be hundreds and hundreds of Muslims in our organization, you know, and we be doing programs all over the country. I think you attended one little activity when I was down in LA, and I was in that apartment one time. Yeah. Okay, and y'all went out to it was an Iraqi-Iranian masjid. I don't know, a center. I think y'all did. Yeah, y'all went out there with me. Okay. Now imagine, that must have been over 20 years ago. But we are dealing with, and we have been dealing with, that the people that you see every day on the news, right? It's Iraq, it's Iranians, it's Syrians, it's all of those, right? Okay, we've been dealing with these people for years, and you could see that we were the main speaker, that the people respected us. In other words, they were happy to see us. That's been going on for decades. Okay, so when we have a teach-in here, the teach-in is the issue is education. It may be political, economic, social, peace and justice, education, training, strategic training. What we're up against and where we want to go. Recently, the issue has been George Floyd and what happened to him. That stuff that happened to him was really just uncalled for. But there was a reason for that, I believe, a big reason for that. Okay, now, what is the big issue today? The big issue is police brutality, right? Relationship with black people in the community. I don't know, you probably never saw my arrest record, but when I was in Oakland, this is 67 to about 1970. I could not, when I had a case in LA, that federal case, where the government set me up, okay, so I said, well, the government, you got everything here you want, and you're still gonna, you got the judges, the lawyers, you got the whole show, and you still gonna set me up? So I said, I'm leaving. You can keep America, right? I mean, if you got all of that in your pocket and you still gotta go out of your way to set a poor brother up, well, you have to remember, why would they set me up? Because Oakland is, we call it East Oakland Enterprises. You gotta remember, they didn't like the Black Panther Party, but the Black Panther Party was only political and all of that stuff. They was easy to get rid of them. The Black Panther Party, if you remember, there in Oakland by 1971, they was about to through. When Huey got out of jail and out of CMC in 1970, the movement was about over. He moved downtown. You know those Lakeshore Apartments, that big apartment building down by Lake Merritt? Yeah. He moved up there on the 23rd floor, almost at the top. And it cost him $650 to stay there at that time. The reason I know is because one of my best friends lived in the same apartment on the 21st floor, and that's how much his rent was, $650. It's like $6,000 a month now, right? Now, our relation with the police was this. This is a 100% 1968 black nationalist costume. Perfect. Free Huey Newton buttons. See these free Huey Newton buttons? This looked like it was carved right off a Black Panther poster. Okay. But I did an assessment this same year. Remember, I was raised, state raised. I spent most of my time in the California Youth Authority. Okay, but what was happening in the California Youth Authority? If you remember names like W.L. Nolan, right? Fleta Drungold, Bunchy Carter, all of those people. Now remember, the rebellion came from all of us that was in jail, right? The main leaders in all the parties. The Soledad brothers, one of them was my best friend, Fleta Drungold. In fact, if you don't believe it, ask your Aunt Sherry. I was down there giving a speech at the Infirmary Park for Bobby Hutton Park for when Geronimo Pratt died several years ago, and I was giving a speech, and I started talking about Fleta Drungold. I said he was my workout partner. He was from L.A. Was he Outlaws? He was Outlaws. I think he was, his gang, I think he was Outlaws. So, he was my workout partner. I met him in '61 at Fred C. Nellis School for Boys. I mean, we were friends all of that time. We were workout partners when I was in Tracy, Duell Vocational Institution, when I was grown. Okay. W.L. Nolan, we was in Frico Ranch School for Boys together in 1957, and then he left probably 58 or 59. He was Carnell Nolan's brother. They knew how to fight real good. They was a famous boxing family. Carnell Nolan was the oldest, and W.L. Nolan was more of a street fighter than technical boxer. He's the one that taught. You look at these old movies, he's the one that taught W.L. Nolan, taught Fleta Drungold, taught George Jackson them, call it manhood training. He taught them. He got killed at Soledad in 1968. They shot him in the yard because they knew his influence. Okay, 1968. This was the style. Guess what I see? I just looked around and I said, all of my homeboys is getting killed. They are. Or they're now 68, what Soledad brothers. I looked at a poster one day, and I looked, and that was George Jackson, and that was Fleta Drungold. You could tell Fleta because he had a burn on his face. He was burnt at the top of his body. I said, those is my homeboys. And I did an analysis of the environment, 1968. This is the reality. This is a disguise. This is what you might have heard a lot about. You know, the record shop hiring everybody in East Oakland and all of that, right? This is only a year later. So for a while, I fooled the police thinking this is what's happening. This nigga here. You ain't going to imagine nobody look like that helping in no rebellion, right? Tell the truth. They don't mix. But what the police realized, this person is more dangerous than the Black Panther Party because he has economic power. He's given them real black power, not political power, but money power. You know what I mean? The ability to buy, the ability to manage. You will have to imagine, you probably heard the news, almost everybody in East Oakland either worked directly for me or for somebody else that I was helping to get rich. Right? I don't know what you heard about me, but I'm sure it was something close to that. Right? Yeah, that's okay. So this is a disguise. That's what this is. This is a disguise. Okay. That's why I was getting arrested. You couldn't believe it. I got arrested in Oakland. This is my arrest record. Now, when I sent to Oakland, what does it say right here? This is from Alameda County, and this is all these pages deal with my arrest record for my bail bond. And even the last page, or one of the last pages, it has Algeria and Tanzania on it, where I had run off to because my bail bond, maybe he thought I owed him a few dollars, but I didn't, you know. So here's what I'm trying to say. Today, the issue is justice between black people, right? And the police departments mainly. Okay, right now in Oakland, we have been having a wonderful time with the police. Look right here. This is not no 20 or 30 years ago. This is the last time I was in Oakland. Right? This is the last time I'm in Oakland. You can see this is the masjid right back here. The same masjid that y'all used to visit your father at and come and hang out sometime years ago. That's the masjid. Here I am going to jail. Here's our wonderful Oakland police. In fact, they got 3 Latinos doing it this time because they didn't want it to look like white folks. But I'm in the masjid cleaning myself up, and I'm barefooted, and if I wouldn't have put my pants on, I would have been naked. They would have came in. They came in and they was beating on the bathroom door and trying to get in there, and I said, I ain't coming out of here till I get some clothes on. And here's the guy that called the police on me, right up here. You can see him in the corner. Everybody in Oakland knows that's Mukhtar right here. You can recognize him. See right here? Everybody can recognize this man. Right? Now, what is the issue today? Today, the issue is police brutality. Right? That's the issue of today. Here I am, 74 years old at that time, being arrested by the police, and it's updating and it's modernizing everybody. Now imagine I'm going back to Oakland soon. When this stuff died down here, we have perfect access to the whole United States picture. Why? Because I have a stack of paperwork relating to police authorities, right? A whole stack of paperwork that clearly outlines, right, their ideas and what they were trying to do to me. They was trying to slow down our roll. They was trying to, of course, I don't think you ever saw this. This was a little before your time, but this is a bad boy here. Now, you know how many cars I used to have. This is just one of them. This is one everybody liked, you know. And but it wasn't just me having a lot. Remember, we made it possible. The difference between us, the difference between East Oakland Enterprises, you ask your Aunt Sherry, what was her first job? When you talk, her first job was at my record shop up there on 85th. And at that time, Oakland was not like it is now. Oakland was a wonderful place to live. They can say what they want. Black people were doing well. Black people, yes. Oh, okay. Right. No, I was like that all the time. That was just a gift, thinking about the people. I always liked black people. I just always did. Now, there's a difference between perfection and beauty. A lot of people are always striving for perfection, and they don't see the beauty in everything. If you look for perfection, you will never like the human being, because they ain't perfect, right? But if you're looking for beauty instead of perfection, right? If you're looking for beauty in the world, it's everywhere, man. It's beautiful walking in the park. It's beauty everywhere, but it ain't no perfection. If you're looking for the human being, your best friend gonna cut your throat. Your other friend gonna try to steal your girlfriend. The other one gonna, run off with your bag of dope, right? That's, if you want perfection, like they had that old saying in D.C., if you want a friend in Washington, D.C., get a dog. That's what the white folks say. They say get a dog, because that don't go here. But anyway, the point is, the first encounter that I had with black nationalism technically was with the Nation of Islam. Brother came, one of the brothers, he came to me, we was talking. This is 1963, I'm 18 years old. He said, do you know what the problem is? I said, what is the problem? He said, it's the white man. Now you got to remember, in 1963, where you worked, where you lived, everything that you was determined by your color. Everything. All right? The next thing was, just look around the world, brother. That was during the colonial period. Everybody in 1963 was beginning, this is the early stages of decolonization. So in the 50s and the 60s and later on in the 70s, people was fighting against Western domination under colonialism, right? So there was a collective mind in America. There was desegregation, civil rights, human rights, then later on BLA, Black Liberation Army, and all of that. Okay, my first encounter with Black is Beautiful was in 1963. Okay, now, so in 1963, I joined the Nation of Islam. And it helped a lot. I mean, it helped discipline, self-control. I stopped smoking. I stopped eating pork in 1963, 1964. I stopped eating meat. I have made a drop of meat since 64. Because in the prison, they would put a little pork in, like if you had spaghetti and meatballs. And in the kitchen, they was mixing the meatballs with the spaghetti. They would put 5 pounds, say they got 100 pounds of meat to put in the whole prison. they would put 5 pounds of pork in there and kind of let you know it. So I said, well, I'm going to stop eating pork and all meat. That's just the attitude that I had. But I realize now that that attitude was a gift. Oh, you want this? Well, you keep it then. I don't want nothing from you. That's a wonderful attitude. That's the attitude. I've been had it. I was born with it and raised with it. And the attitude about loving black people was there all along. That's why I got along with black people all the time. I had very few fights. In fact, after I was grown, when I was in them penitentiaries, I got in trouble because I was against the system. Other kids would jump on each other if they was a tough kid and beat up other kids. Like, I didn't do that. I went to the hole all the time because I was harassing the officers, the counselors, right? And so that's the worst thing you could do, right? So they would send me to isolation because harassing them, they consider it a disease, so they isolate you. That isolation was the most wonderful thing. I'm telling you. When you're going to have a fight, Allah prepares you to have a fight, prepares you for that fight. When I went to the California Youth Authority, what did it prepare me for? The rebellion that was coming a few years later. When I got out of prison, see, some of the other brothers, George Jackson, Fleeta Drungle and them, when I got out, I left Fleeta Drungle in DVI in Tracy, that institution out there. And then they shipped him to Soledad. He never got out. I got out, you know, years later, when I was in LA County Jail, after I'd been out all that time, I met one of the brothers that we used to be in the nation together. So I said, man, how long you been out? He said, man, I ain't stay out no time. I got out, went back. We was in Tracy together in 64 and 65. So he had never stayed out over a month, 2, 3 months. I had stayed out 8 years. He said, man, you been out all the time since you was in Tracy? I said, yeah, I go back to jail for 2, 3 days or a day or so to bail out. But I never stayed in jail no time after I was grown. After I was grown, except the last federal charge. So anyway, the California Youth Authority prepared me for what was coming, the period of rebellion. Why? All the leaders or all the functionaries in the Black Panther Party was what? They came out of jail. They came out of jail. Fleeta Drungle and them was in jail, the Soledad brothers, right? George Jackson, Soledad brother. Okay, many of the great personalities in the movement come from prison. W.L. Nolan. You look up those names. Anybody look up W.L. Nolan? Right. So anyway, those are people. If you look up Fleeta Drungle, W.L. Nolan, those people were all, Bunchy Carter, you look up those names, those were all functionaries and they got killed, all of them, I think, Black Panther. Fleeta Drungle didn't get killed. George Jackson got assassinated in Soledad in 71. They said he had snuck a gun in his hair. That's okay. That's okay. It's not possible, but that's what. If they designate you as a black radical and have your face on TV every day with a big old bushy natural, they can do anything they want to you. That's why they could do anything they want to me, because they plastered me anti-Semitic, all over the media. That's why they could arrest me 8 times in our masjid, and I got the deed to the property. And I got the articles of incorporation. I got everything. But they can do that because you read Imam Abdul Alim Musa, an anti-Semite, or this, and or that, da-da-da-da-da, and they keep running it. They can give these other Negroes the authority to do anything they want because they thought that whatever they did, I was going to respond to them, but they missed the boat. They missed the boat. That's not what we're about, nor is that what we. Let me give you a few pictures here. It'll give you, I think I showed you these pictures before. We have been doing a wonderful job. This right here is psychological guerrilla warfare. Psychological guerrilla warfare is like regular guerrilla warfare. When you have a small army, a small group of people, you're fighting a big army, and you have small numbers, you go and you do guerrilla warfare. You don't do confrontational, face-to-face warfare. You do guerrilla warfare. Okay, now, psychological guerrilla warfare is when this system has all the levers, all of the whole show in its hand, right? And we have to fight against him, which we're going to do, which we're going to keep on doing. You got to remember, out of all the brothers, all of my friends are either dead, or let's be serious about it, or broken by the system. The system then killed them all, and I'm the only one active and alive. You think I'm going to let these punks, you know what I mean? Technically, if you carrying the whole, on your shoulders, that whole historical piece, right? That's what it is. You have to analyze, what am I doing, right? I mean, this is not bragging. I'm just telling you, that's what we're doing here. We have inherited the black movement. Let me explain to you the black movement. Stage 1, freedom rides back in 61, 62 and all that. Freedom rides is burning all the buses. Then civil rights. Then after that, they get their little civil rights stuff. It goes to black nationalism, like black nationalism. Stokely Carmichael now. And Stokely Carmichael, he's the one that, actually it wasn't Stokely. It's another brother. I'll think of his name in a minute. He's the one that coined the term Black Power. I'll think of his name in a minute. But Stokely Carmichael, he was in the background saying, say it. And so Stokely looked at him, Black Power, say it louder, Black Power. And then he comes out, Black Power, right? So it moves from that to Black Power, Black liberation. Then it goes to like Imam Jamil and them. See, during that movement, everything is evolving and changing. So in a short period, we went from civil rights, right, to BLA, Black Liberation Army. That's Imam Jamil and all of them, H. Rap Brown. Okay? All those leaders, not all of them, but many of them became Muslims. So the Muslim is the one, that's called Sunni Muslims, inherited the black nationalist movement. It was a natural transcript from one thing to the other. So our early movements, the Islamic Party and the Dar al-Islam movement, all of them were militant, and they had a tinge of black nationalism. That was their roots, all of them, okay? So, when they can tag you, give you a name, and it's psychological, it goes like this. It's called perception management. Perception management means that people act off the perception of reality, not reality, right? If they make China the problems for all the things that's happening in America now, right? Then the people, if they perceive it like that, then they will begin to act like that about China, right? Because they'll think China's a troublemaker, they're communists, they're this, that, and other, they stole all our jobs. Not one Negro sent no jobs overseas. All of them jobs were sent overseas by the white industrial complex. They made all the money, they did all the things. But the perception now is China is bad. If they can draw a picture of me, right, your dear great uncle, then they can do anything they want to me, right? That's why they can arrest me. This is 82nd Avenue in front of our masjid. They've taken me out of the masjid. I got the deed, and I got everything to it. I got the articles of incorporation. Everybody in Oakland know that that's what's happening. That's where we're from. Well, why could they do that? They could do that because that ain't nothing. Look at this right here. You probably never saw this. This is your dear, you saw this before? No, what happened? I was attacked in the masjid by the same crew. I was just sitting down. And these dummies put a video, like they made this video, they also put this, they didn't put this beating on top of, but they have them outside of the masjid saying he's in there sitting down. And I was sitting down. You know, the police have never did nothing about this. Now that was pretty serious. You know, I left California and drove back here, then I drove back to Arizona for a program, and when I got back here, I couldn't even hold a cup of coffee. I was over at GW Hospital. They had the police, the Negro police did this. The United States government agents did that. They didn't have uniforms on. The same person that's right here, that's who did it. And you know who knows it? The uniformed police. Do you know who contacted them? We did. Twice at the hospital and everywhere else. It's on our phone record. But at the same time, why could they get away with that? I think I showed you these pictures before. Now I want you to imagine someone out of East Oakland. You know how whenever you hear bad news, you hear it from Iran, right? Iranians did this, Iranians did that, right? Now suppose you have your dear great uncle laughing and talking with the supreme leader. This is not some Iranian. This is a supreme leader, right? They can't even talk to him. That no other American can get within 5 miles of the supreme leader. They can't. They're just not, oh, that's an American. He can't go over there, boy. Right? Now, suppose this is President Ahmadinejad. The little guy, they hate him. You know what they believe? They believe that we was boosting him up here. Not boosting him up, but advising him on how to deal with America. Example, if he said a woman was executed in Iran, He said, well, didn't you just execute a woman in Virginia the other day? Which was true. And they get mad because they think that we telling them all of that. The other thing is, the night when I just went under, President Ahmadinejad called me on the phone. I hope everything goes all right, because one of our friends was on his staff, and he was telling them, first of all, when I come back from Iran with my phone, they look on the phone. They visiting him. This guy is actually a friend of mine. And he tweeted, remember? Didn't he tweet? He tweeted twice, 2 or 3 times, about I hope you get better, and that America can't protect even their own citizens, you know. Well, that's one thing. But look at here. Can you imagine a Negro on a front page of the political newspaper in Iran? And then you can't read it, but if you look the way it's in sections, with a title of each little section. That title may be, one of them may be strategic management under conditions of repression. The other one is ideological focus, and how to focus and how to lead and direct your people to a common goal. The other one is on visualization. Now, I gave this lecture at the University of Tehran, of course in English. Our friends translated it. Now suppose you come back and on your phone is a picture of a birthday cake. Suppose there's some university, the kids there got a birthday cake for you. I don't know if y'all ever saw that. A birthday cake. A Negro from California or from DC, people like him so much, right, that they're having a birthday party for him in Tehran. That's too much for them to take. You gotta, it's simple to me. I just had a birthday party in Tehran. The kids at the university like me. The professors are my old friends from California. That's too much for them white folks to take. They can't take that. That nigga, they boiling, like right now, what I'm saying, they over there boiling right now. Ain't nothing they can do about it, because they done waited too long. If they would have hit early, they could have got rid of me and that'd have been it. But they thought that if they keep harassing and messing with me, my attitude is going to change. And I'm going to become mean, right? Or I'm going to become despondent. Yeah. Meanness is like, you give up on people, or you begin to hate people so bad that you become like them. If black people are in a struggle with the system and they become like the white people, leaders, then they've lost. You can't allow those people, right, to make you like them, right? If you have a white nationalist and you become just a black nationalist, not a humanitarian, right? Remember, we're all over the world. Look at this right here. This is from South Africa. You would think that I was running for president or something. See? Imam Abdul Ali Musa. What is that up here, Rauf? That means refocus and what have you. That's a drug treatment program. They wanted me to come and speak at a program that we started, or we helped start it in South Africa, right? When I tried to come back to the U.S., they held me up for I don't know how long at the airport. What I'm trying to say is that perception management, if they can make you like them, then you lose. But if you if you adapt and adjust, you will do like this. Islamic Institute for Counter Zionist American Psychological Warfare. We had 2 places, one around the corner and one out in California. We had offices. That's the name that was out there. You can't see it here, But this name right there says this: Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. This is not bragging. No, let me explain something. We are the most successful group of strugglers in the historical United States in several ways. Number one, longevity. You remember Dr. King lasted 12, 13 years, right? 1956, 1968. Malcolm X, 1952 to 1965. They didn't have a chance to mature and to adjust. I'm telling you now, as an older person, one of the greatest things is for you to have an opportunity to evolve. See, age have a lot to do with evolving and learning when to hold and when. Some person just called me a few minutes ago from a certain place outside of the country. I held up giving a talk the other day for one reason, because if I would have spoke, I was getting ready to blast them. A little bit of it snuck out. Remember that at the end of the program over there? A little bit snuck out. I said, I ain't coming out. Why? Because you learn yourself. You got to evolve to do that. You know, I ain't going to say it because they deserve it. They got it coming. But it's not right. For now, right? Forget it. That comes from time, man. Do you think I would allow the Negro to bust me upside the head a few years back? No. When they used to come to the masjid talking crazy, I had an iron bar in there. I'd beat them all upside because that's what you did in those days. But now, the peace and the tranquility makes Martin Luther King look like a bloody revolutionary. Right? Because of what you think the way we're attacked and treated right now, we've passed Martin Luther King in nonviolence. In fact, let me give you a little idea about what this stuff. Nonviolent resistance. The evolution of Islamic movement in North America deals with three elements, I believe: transition, transformation, and transcendence. Transition is when you change from one thing to another. Transformation is when you are transformed by that transition. You actually evolve, you grow, and you develop. Transcendence is when you break the gravitational pull. It's just like a rocket ship shoot up. When it get up so high, that first stage rocket drop, right? And then it goes on into orbit, probably. But the higher it go, the less the gravitational pull. That's the way life is right now. Other people would think this stuff is hard. I'm sorry, it is not hard. It's not hard because if you get time to adapt and to adjust, you can adapt and adjust to everything. And then Allah give you, right, the facilities and the attitude and everything that you need to, as we say, transition, transformation, and transcendence, that Allah allow you to evolve above and beyond all the gravitational pulls of literally any and everything that's holding you down. So the other day when we was up giving talks, which we will return soon, we were there to talk about how we view things, really to get them thinking about the world in which we live in. Example, alternative resistance. Alternative resistance is, instead of going and asking the Congress for this, asking the Congress that, leave them alone. If we have drug treatment that's needed, right? if you have family conflict, and you need some conflict resolution, right? Who should you call? If you're homeless, by the way, and I'll mention this, you know, our building up there on MacArthur, we got 3 big buildings. One of them is across the street next to the post office. That whole property on MacArthur, from the post office all the way down to that next building, is our property. Of course, the Negro agents sold that, but they can't keep it. Imagine that we get a chance to go before the public, no matter what they do here. When we go back to Oakland, when it dies down about all this, it ain't gonna die down with us. And it's just at the right time. It's just the flavor. Guess what we become? We are the experts on police brutality. There's nobody in Oakland, I don't even know of anybody that's arrested more than me in those days. So I have a history and in modern times, we have all the letters, we have all the things that they say, we killed him, but it was by the regular police procedure. All of the arrests that I had there in Oakland, at our masjid, I challenged the arrest, and they wrote back to me, yes, that happened. Like, you remember one of them said, yes, this happened and that happened, but it was all in a line with da-da-da-da-da. It's not true at all. Why I didn't challenge them then? Waiting till now. Why I didn't go back to California 6 months ago? Waiting for now. Why? Because this is the time. This is the time. Remember, whatever fight Allah is going to put you in, He's going to train you for it. And we believe it's called qadr or taqdir, that Allah has created everything and gave its time and its space to act in that. But the human being has the free will to make or break his own future. He go to heaven or hell based on his own background. We are right now involved in what's called writing your own history. Writing your own history. Right now, we have written ourselves, first of all, you got to go backwards a little bit. At every stage of history in the black community, we've been on the scene in a big way. Since the time we were children, we was a part of the one from school to prison. Well, they didn't even give me a chance to get in school. It was straight to prison. Well, a little bit of school, elementary school. And even a little, I think I might have got a little junior high in. And I got a good education, you know, where I got it in jail, in the penitentiary. I got a chance to read, you know what, American history. When the brother told me in 1963 that the white man was the problem, I knew the timelines in all U.S. history already. You know, all I had to do was turn it upside down. That's all. Whatever they taught me Indians was bad, right? And that they were savages. I said, they had to be civilized. Why? Because the white man said they were savages. So, right? I just turned a whole history. That's all I had to do. I already knew the history. I didn't have to read no more books. I already knew it, of course I did. Now, up until today, we have evolved through every period. The black period, the black economic period, right? I mean, we're the only ones that did that. You got to remember, nobody else in Oakland, all the big Negroes, the Ward brothers and all of them, you remember hearing about all them guys? Yeah. None of them did anything for anybody but themselves. That's not bad. That's what everybody wanted to have their own personal money. But I was made different. I was like that then, I'm like that now. I want to eat and stuff like that, rest, when I need it. But I don't need all of that money. You got to get a lot of it to find that out, though. See, most people ain't going to get enough money to ever find out that money is not the solution. Most people are going to be working most of their lives, and they're barely going to get by, or they get lucky and they get a little bit ahead. But most people are not going to get money to where they don't need it, or they don't want any more. Right? I want everybody else to have what I got. That's the hadith. You love for your brother what you love for yourself. I had that before I even knew the hadith, the saying. Okay, now, this nonviolent resistance is if you need to take care of homelessness, right? We got a plan for homelessness. Then the churches, the mosque, the synagogue should take care of it. Like in the old days. In the old days, before Social Security and all that, the religious institutions. The religious institutions used to have places they called poorhouses. I guess they call them something different now. Because in those days if you was a garbage man, they called you a garbage man. Now you're a sanitation engineer, right? In those days, they had, I'll tell you where that was one in Oakland. Do you know down where Montgomery Ward used to be years ago, there was the East Oakland Hospital? Down on East 14th in the 20s. Do you remember where Montgomery Ward used to be? That was a big department store. Well, right there, where the East Oakland Hospital is, that's maybe 29th, 28th, 27th, 28th, or 29th Avenue on East 14th. Right across from that place is Little Sister's House of the Poor. It was a Catholic place. Little Sister's House of the Poor. That was from the old days. They called them poorhouses. And if you ran out of money, they say, "Where's old Miss Jones? Oh, she's in the poorhouse." I don't know if you ever heard that. They'd say, "Right, she's in the poorhouse." Yeah, not somewhere else. They called it what it was. Now they call it some rest home or something like that. It used to be the poorhouse. Okay, so if you want to take care of homelessness, suppose, look at all the churches we got. Suppose we turn the churches into one group of churches, they're going to take care of homelessness. So they turn their big auditorium out next to the church or something into what? Homelessness. Would you have any homelessness? No. Fix it. Well, maybe in California you. Have you driven down into the streets in Oakland like San Leandro Boulevard down by, anywhere in Oakland? Have you noticed the amount of homelessness in Oakland and San Francisco and Berkeley? The housing is so expensive. It's down to 5%. So Hunters Point is gone. Fillmore been gone. You know what I mean? All of those, the black, you know how much a 3-bedroom house in San Francisco right now is $1.5 million for a 3-bedroom house. That's a standard house, right? And Oakland, them houses ain't cheap anymore. The house you're your grandmother, the house you used to live in with your grandmother. Do you know how much that house would cost right now up there on Mountain View? Man, it'd be, you couldn't none of us live in it, right? And then she owned all kind of houses all around there, you know. Anyway, let me get back to the point. Now you can imagine when I go to my friends, all the guys that y'all saw in that old movie, like what was that old movie? The Mac and all of that. Remember the Mac was in Oakland. And all those guys was my friend. I knew every one of them. Okay. Most of them have passed away. In fact, the last of the Ward brothers died last year. Willie Ward, which was the youngest one, he died last year. But anyway, now imagine I'm talking to them and I'm telling them, the ones that became preachers. Yeah, you know, we're going to try to live like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And if y'all try to live like Jesus, talking to them now. What you mean? I said, you know, Jesus served the people. Remember the Sermon on the Mount? Blessed are the poor, blessed are the peacemakers, the poor, the meek shall inherit the earth, all of that. Right? That's Sermon on the Mount. That's the Jesus. Well, what about the Benz and the B? They all got Benzes and BMWs and big houses. You know what the preachers look like in Oakland and everywhere. The biggest laugh that I get is from them. They almost roll on the floor when I tell them this is how to help the world. You want all them poor niggas coming in the church? That's what they feel. They feel the same way around here. Think about it. Do you think the middle class, right, that even from here or from out in Maryland, right out across the street, do you think they want the homeless people living in their churches? What would Jesus do if he had them big churches? Right? If Jesus came back today, he would think the churches that the Romans worshipped in there. Right? He wouldn't think they was his followers. He would say, well, what's this Christianity stuff? Well, that's supposed to be you. In them joints? Right? He would, huh?
They have people on 10th Street. They got the street called Black Lives Matter Plaza.
Right.
And supposedly they have people that are setting up tents to live in. So I'm thinking about what you said about these mega churches we have out here. They could live actually in the parking lots.
Those churches.
It's still not recognized.
Hey man, go out Central Avenue. You know that I see some of these churches right out there by Six Flags and all that. Yeah. Look at them and all the bowling alleys, right here in town. All these bowling alleys are what? Churches. This same thing in Oakland, the bowling alley and all that, they become big churches. Or bowling alley, all of that, right? Those are medium-sized. Technically, they small churches now. The bowling alleys, they're medium-sized. Them big churches. Look at the money they have. Look at the money. You know Allen Temple? Yeah. Look at Allen Temple. Allen Temple used to be that little church right there on the corner of 8th Street and 85th. That was during our time. Then it moved. It got built a building next door. Then it built that big sanctuary. It bought up all of those. It owns that whole area. Then you go down to 82nd Avenue. They got Allen Temple Arms. They are mega rich, right? Suppose they spent that money instead of raising $50,000 for the choirs new robes. You know, they do that at church all the time. Tell the truth, the senior choir needs new robes, and we only need 50,000 for the new robes. Suppose they fed the people and used all that property they have to let people live there. The churches are like the masajid, are like the mosque. They've turned into making a joyful noise to the Lord, doing all that singing, and they don't do nothing that Jesus said. Here's what we would do. And this is what we suggest. The churches, some have meetings, some take the homeless problem. Some take the opiate or the drug problem, right? Some take security, counseling. This church, they're going to have a staff. They're going to be at the church. They're going to have 4 or 5 brothers and sisters there, male and female. And when they get the people, instead of calling the police, when they have a family argument, they're going to call the church. And the church is going to go out. Because now you know if you call the police on your husband, their husband, the police got a good chance of shooting him, right? As anything. And all right, suppose the churches, the mosque and the synagogue live up to their original. That's what they were built for. They were built for a sanctuary. You know, that was a time when you could run in a church and hide and the police couldn't come in there and get you. The church was a sanctuary. The mosque was a sanctuary. You know, if you run in the church, they might go call the old preacher. He come down and say, well, what did you do, this, that, and other. And he might be able to, well, I'll bring him in tomorrow. Well, I'm going to talk to his mama. You know what I mean? That type of stuff. Why don't we do that again? But we have to do that ourselves. They talk about defunding the police. Let them mind their own business. Okay, the other thing about, you know, they have an army to train people to kill other people. They think that's the only reason to have an army. Or a police department. Now, they laugh at us all the time because we say in our ideal society, the police would chase niggas down and hug them to death. Give them a hug. Nigga, you need a hug today. Right? And if it's community policing, the church, the mosque, the synagogue, a store owner call us about something happening, we go down, boy, what you doing down here? What you was stealing a package of chewing gum. Instead of going to jail, okay. You're going to have to be down here for 3 days a week and help this man in his store. You're going to have to sweep up and you can't steal nothing. You're going to have to sweep up. Is that all right with you, Mr. Jones? Sure. Think how better that is than sending them to jail. Right? Now, if it's not a super crime, we don't have to call the police or nothing. We handle it ourselves. Conflict resolution. When you talk about it, oh, that's easy to do. Why is it easy to do? Because that's what we used to do a long time ago. Who was going to call the sheriff? First of all, everybody know the sheriff was white, so you definitely ain't going to call no. Who's going to call it? You call the preacher, you call the neighbors, so-and-so just won't stop, you know, well, da-da-da-da-da, right? That's alternative resistance. That's what we're talking about. And the people laugh at us. Boy, Imam Musa said, instead of beating the people upside the head, if you know they have a social problem, you run and chase them, be organized, and hug them. Instead of choking them with a chokehold, if you got to squeeze the life out of them, hug him to death, but not really. You know that a lot of the problems are social and psychological. You know, in our homeless I ain't gonna call it homeless shelter, unhoused area. We're gonna get our property back. But our unhoused area, and we didn't talk about it many times. In fact, the minute we started talking about it is when they sold it the next day, right? They sold our property the minute we said, up on MacArthur, we're gonna turn that whole section of property into a homeless, let's call it homeless. But it's gonna be different. We're gonna start with a 3-star homeless shelter. It ain't like you just get over there in your bunk and lay down. The people who work there are gonna have to be servants of those people. That's the attitude. First of all, the food is gonna be the same quality food we have here for ourselves, for eat. And then they have their regular little thing over their arm, right? The little napkin, and they come and Mr. Jones, what would you like for breakfast? And he say, I want Negro eggs, I want some toast, and we go right back there and we bring it and serve it to him. Why? They say 65% of the people that are homeless have some psychological disorder. You know why? They haven't been treated like human beings. We'll cut that in half just by treating them like that. They don't think like that, though. They think, have a homeless shelter, just run them in there, lay them all down, and then treat them like prisoners. You lucky you ain't outside. No, you didn't do nothing wrong to be homeless. Ain't nothing wrong with you. That's the first thing we're going to let them. First of all, ain't nothing wrong with you. You know, that's the first thing. I mean, we don't say ain't nothing wrong with you. Unless sometimes we might say, nigga, ain't nothing wrong with you. Foaming at all the mouth. We might do that if that's the treatment the guy need. You know what I mean? Niggas sitting up here foaming all at the mouth and hollering and cussing, because some of them do that stuff sometimes. So, man, ain't nothing wrong with you. Come on, let's go for a ride. Let's go fishing, right? Right? That'll fix you up. I'm trying to tell you, the people don't think. In the Army, same thing. If they want to have an army that they spend all their money on, right, and don't have nobody to fight, we're not going to have no army. Or it might be 5 or 10 people. All the military bases, we'd turn them into homeless places. Yeah, you could, and universities or what have you, something like that. Right, okay. That's you have to have a vision. How do you want your society to look, right? We've been working on this for years. To you hearing this, you might say, man, I ain't never heard nothing like. We've been dealing with this every day, all the time. And we do all the things that they associate with us are basically lies. I would say all of them are lies and they're fabricated. Okay, now imagine now, when we go back to Oakland, with the stuff you're doing, with the stuff we've been doing on all the media, and people in Oakland remember, see, they tried to draw a picture of me in Oakland because they felt they had all the levers in their hand. That's the way they felt. We got the people, we got the history, we got the back. We going to destroy that man. That's what they was thinking about me. And they had all, you may not believe it, you ask your father that I told him back in the 80s when he was up there at the masjid with us, ask him, didn't I tell him that all the people there was the police? Ask him, I told him that. I told him, I told all of them was, not some of them. I told him all. The only one that wasn't the police was my 2 sons.
He actually told me about something that I want to ask about it. You claimed Arkansas in 1919.
Yeah, in 1919.
You know about that?
Yes.
Was that the police too?
That was blacks had just came back from the war, World War I. The biggest lynchings was right after the war, because the best fighters in World War I, the ones that spent most of the time, okay, let me put it this way. I don't know if you ever heard of the Harlem Hellfighters or 369th. Harlem Hellfighters. Type them up right quick if you got something that you could type up. Harlem Hellfighters. Harlem, Harlem. Harlem. You know Harlem, New York. Harlem Hellfighters. 369th. Okay, I'll keep talking. Those people went over to France. First they had Negroes digging graves. The French had lost a whole generation of men. They asked the United States, can we have those Negroes? And they took off the U.S. uniform and they put on the French uniform. And they were the most highly decorated warriors in World War I. Right? And they spent more time in the trenches. And now, that riot in Arkansas, I think that was around 1919. No, the Red Summer was 1919, but that was about the communists, and that was about...
That wasn't about blacks that were coming, that were being lynched, all the black people, all the black soldiers.
The Red, well, they might have been the Red Summer, but the Red Scare. The Red Scare, if that's what we're talking about, that was, okay, the Red Summer. It might have been that. Okay, but you got to remember the mentality of those days. When Jack Johnson won a championship in 1910, I think it was 51 people lynched. Okay, the thing you're talking about in Arkansas, I think it was over 100 people killed in that. That was because we had came back from World War I, and that was a separate incident. The most decorated soldier, it was two of them, they was from Arkansas. They killed them separately from that rebellion or riot that they had where the white folks attacked us. The place in Arkansas would be like Rosewood. They just came in and killed everybody. Yeah, they killed over 100 people, if I remember offhand. Okay, but that was because black people had went over to Paris. Now, let me explain about the French. Do you remember, or do you know that between World War I and after, how popular blacks were in France? You know, everybody James Baldwin went to France. Josephine Baker went to France. A lot of the jazz musicians, they went to France. Why? Because the French loved black Americans. They loved them. Why? Because the black Americans had fought so hard for the French. They used to tell the white girls there in France that Negroes had tails. And so when they was having sex with them, they would feel back there to see if they had a tail. And then the white boys would tell them, no, these had an operation. They had their tails cut off. Okay. No, this is common. That was common. That was the most famous thing that they told, that the niggas have tails. And the other thing was, the French, they said they had oral sex type thing. And then the Negro come back from France, white boys too, and that oral thing, you know, that spread, and that kind of got people jumping up and down. And hey, shoot, they had a lot of reasons to get rid of them Negroes. But anyway, 1919 was the worst year for lynching in the United States. One of the worst years. 1919. It's because we had just got back from the war. I mean, we got back in 1919 because remember them ships, it took a long time to get from. They came back and hey, they was killing us, lynching us in uniforms and trees. That even happened in World War II. A few brothers got lynched in their uniform. Okay, so anyway, yeah, your father was right when he told you about those that period in Arkansas. I think, huh? Elaine, that's what it was.
Estimated 100, 240 black people, 5 white killed, and it's been known as the Elaine Massacre.
Elaine Massacre. That's why, look, I'm going to read you something. We got a lot of reasons to, if we wanted to hate white people. But let me tell you, we have وَأَسْنُوا قَوْلًا مِمَّا دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلُوا صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. The first part meant, who is better in speech? Da'a ila Allah, invite people to Allah, right? To propagate this word. Amilu salihat, to work righteous deeds, to be good to neighbors and friends. And with all of this Islamophobia, which is tons of it, you stand up and say, I'm a Muslim. Do you know, for some reason, there was hardly no Muslim representation in all of these demonstrations down there, all over the country. We were looking for Muslim-looking people, and especially looking for hijab. That's the easiest thing. You didn't see too much. I'm not going to say you didn't see none. I know we saw at least 3 or 4 Muslims down there. One day we saw 2 whole families, I think, down there, out of those hundreds of thousands of people, whatever it was down there. They scared the Muslims to death. There's something wrong. That's why I was going to talk to them in a certain way. I said I ain't going to do it because it wouldn't be nice. Now, there's a word, tastawi, to become equal, equalize, to become straight. Do not return bad with bad, but equalize it. Return good for evil. That's our philosophy. This is what I'm reading from one of the verses, ayats. Return evil with good. That means this is way farther than turn the other cheek. Adwa, enmity, hostility, antagonism. Wali, awliya, friend, protector, guardian, and sponsor. Hamim is like boiling water, hot water. What it's saying is, it may be between you and thee that was hatred, become a warm friend, a warm and fuzzy friend. That's what that ayat means. That's the way we look at America. Do you know, with all this mean talk, our job is to rescue America and try to help it to become not America the Great, but America the Good. America the Good. That's our duty, that's our responsibility. That's what we're working on. That's because of evolution. See, that means that we have evolved in our Islamic development. We read these ayats years ago, these verses, but I don't even remember them from way back when, because it wasn't a time. When you evolve, when I said that If somebody would have came in the masjid in the 80s talking that way, I'd have beat them to death, because that's where we was psychologically. But we evolve. You see, it takes time to evolve. That's why we clearly state evolution over revolution. Because revolution is a quick change and you grab power and then you go crazy. Right? The good guys put the bad guys out. The black people put the white people out. And 2 weeks after we get power, the good guys, we become the bad guys. This happened all over the world. That's one thing about traveling the world. You got to remember, we're not a local personality only. You got to remember, in the early part of my life, I moved out of the United States and I got a chance to learn about Africa and its history in person. You know, I learned about Africa in Africa, from the Africans. Okay. Then, when I went to South America to support the black movement, you know, believe it or not, there's no other black cartel, cocaine smuggling cartel in history but ours. What does that mean? You study every pattern in history, from the jailhouse experience, right? From the black revolutionary experience, right? From the drug craze. It wasn't drug craze because we wasn't selling crack. We was selling good old powder cocaine. It wasn't none of that old stuff that run people crazy. This just stuff that had you grinning. You know, from ear to ear. You hear bells when you snort good cocaine, ting-a-ling-a-ling, right? Oh yeah, that's good, blow there, that's good flake. That's what people, they hear bells when they hit that good cocaine. Or you could take the kind of Negro lac that's real strong. It's kind of different colors. I don't mean to be talking about drugs, but it's kind of orange sometimes. We used to call it, up here we called it pineapple and all that because Negroes had that. But down there, it was all cocaine, but it wasn't purified, like brown sugar and white sugar. You know, like brown heroin. The best you can get brown heroin is 86%. But white heroin or China white is all heroin. Well, it's 98.6%, but it's all heroin. One you can cut 16 times, the other one you can cut 20 times. Okay. No, I just want to mention this last point about cocaine. Negroes like that. Down there they call it escama, that's scum. Boy, but when you hit that, bam, it just, bam. I took a hit of it one time, not one time, minute, and God, dog, that's serious. Negroes like that. Okay, white boys like ting-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, flakes. Okay, the point is that everything in history, here comes Islam. We done went through all those stages and then we come to Islam. Final stage, final development. Stages within stages. Let's say now we're in a fourth stage of development. But that was a first stage of development where it solves your basic human problems and concepts of who God is and other realities. The second stage may be the first stage of now, this is what we have to deal with. How are we going to deal with it? The third stage may be strategic management under conditions of repression, where now you are going to manipulate the system. The last 20 years have been that strategic management under conditions of repression. That's what we've done here. That's what we've done. That's what we've been doing. That means we never in history has a group small as our small size managed and manipulated the system. The system always manipulate. For instance, the system flood you with people. And you can't do nothing. So people, they got choices. They can get mad. They can quit. They can do all kind of things. Or you can say, this is great. You know, I'm surrounded in the front, surrounded in the back. That's wonderful. Right? Ain't nobody else gonna say that, but that's what you can say. And guess what? Allah, the Creator, give you the ability to manage that. And then you be managing them. Right now, we're managing them. These things that you see, why do you think we didn't do nothing then? Because we wanted to wait till today. This is now the time to deal with this. Why? Look at the world. Right? The world has got police standing around them, handcuffed behind, right? And then we have stacks of paper from trial. We can't lose this. It wouldn't make no difference if we lost because the case is trespass. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So you can't lose. Only Allah can arrange that. You got to realize that's strategic management under conditions of repression. Third stage. Now, we're moving from stage 3 inside of the whole process of Islam into stage 4. It don't end at one place. But we started this stage 18 years ago. To other people, 18 years ago was a long time. Not for me. I'm telling you. It seemed like not last week, but not long ago. We read stuff from that stage right now. And we read reminders. Kindness is not weakness. Remember all of those things? All this and that. Redundancy. You know, and those are like actual letters, notes to myself. Because sometimes the training is harder than the struggle. In other words, to go through that was harder than now. Now, basically, life is, all I can say is I'm happy. And I didn't sign up to be happy. I signed up for struggle, sacrifice, longevity, and all of that. I didn't sign up to be happy. And guess what? That's what, boy, I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. But that's because you have to have a certain attitude. I can tell you how you can do some of those things. The other day, if you look around, you see everything is visible, right? Our friends, you could see that they knocked holes in the roof. You could see that. Okay. You can see that they left old cars and stuff right there on our property. They gotta have done it on purpose. Ain't nobody called, ain't nobody tried to move it, nothing, right? Those are things that you could see. Now, either they're doing that because that's as far as they could go, or they know you, that if they do anything any more sophisticated, you're going to adopt to that. Okay, we got our own process. When we evolve to a certain level, we tell them we've arrived there. Now you got to do something bigger to make them get bigger. If they're not doing anything to us that's on a higher level, right, that would allow us to grow, we have our own self-guided simulation. What is that nigga talking? Self-guided simulation. You know, when you learn how to fly a plane, they have them simulators, right? You can do most of it in a simulator. You can at least you could get in a real plane if you've been in enough simulators and not kill yourself. You might have a rough ride and a rough landing, one or two, right? But you can learn a lot of the things by simulation. So, self-simulation is when we add in mid-21st century, we call it fitna, or foolishness, and we use our imagination to do it. That this is what they would do according to their level of development, right? This is what they would do. And we simulate it. If they're going to just stop right there and leave us stuff in there, that's because they want us to stay there, right? Because they know the rule. You know, they study you real good. They know that whatever they do, if they leave you alive, you're going to evolve and get better. Remember we used to talk sometime about that maybe I was running in the hills of Oakland and I hurt so bad that I said, I'm just going to keep on running. And it goes away. The same thing happens. What happens? They might be insinuating your pain. And they know that if they keep doing that, you're going to get better and better at it. And you're going to become immune to that pain. That's physical pain, but to get there, you're going to have to become psychologically immune. It's just regular evolution. That's why we talk about evolution so much. If you stay in the game long enough, you're going to out-evolve. So technically, right now, we done boxed up. You got to ask the question. Now, I know ain't nobody in movement ever talked like this, and you may not understand it fully, but the brothers here understand it because we go through, that's why I wanted some of them to be here, because we go through this stuff every day, all the time. And everybody can add up the, let's call it the batting average, right? We always use the term batting average for the average guy. 350 would be good, right? 400 would be excellent. Batting average, baseball. Suppose we got a batting average, and we're just being modest, 950. That means everything we suspect, everything we write about, everything we talk about, all of it is related to foresight. And I'm sorry to say, we come out hitting it out of the park almost all the time. That's a gift, and it's been like that all the time. Why other brothers, would get killed, would go to jail, and they would contribute. That's their part. Okay, you have to ask yourself, why do I get to be 75? Now, for a lot of people, 75 was my cornerstone year. Because I said, if I get to 75, the other 25 years, 100 of course, it's going to be easy. The first 75 is the hardest, right? The second 75, well, it actually won't be no joke. But it's just how we thinking about it. If I leave this afternoon, I'll leave the happiest man that you know or have ever known. Because technically, I ain't going to say I don't care, but the world we want to build, we want to play a part in what we call influence in the direction of change. Not making people change, not forcing change, but influencing the direction of change. Because we have learned that this dictatorship, this one-man rulership, this all that stuff, it don't work. It don't work. So we want to influence the direction of change, right? That's why all of this return evil with good. Return evil with good. That's the way we feel about America. And that's what we preach, and that's what we do. That's been proven. But why are we here at this time is because this is where Allah wanted us to be, or we wouldn't be here. It's just too many possibilities. Otherwise, there's too many possibilities. Therefore, we're grateful to be here, and it's an honor to be doing this. This is a big honor. And all the things, if we can pull this off right, all the dishonor, all the foolishness that they slap on black people, if we can help bring the best out of our people, and now when we say out of our people, technically it means all of humanity. You know, it means all of humanity. But if we can hit the Negro first, it won't bother us at all. But we have definitely evolved beyond race. We've just evolved beyond that, because it's not looking at all the white folks out there jumping up and down. You know, they've been moving that way a long time. They've been moving that. They was like that. You know, that was a crew like that in the 60s. Who do you think all the hippies was? The hippies wasn't no, I hate Negroes, and they hated the police, and the police hated them, right? This is not the first good group of white people. Technically, it's the second. But it didn't make no difference. I don't care whether you go back to John Brown or none of them. There was always somebody, right, that was looking at whether they got it from the Bible, whether they got it from Quran, wherever they got it, it was always somebody looking and saying, that ain't right. That ain't right. Okay. Now, can you imagine that we get a chance to participate? Do you realize that we have been, you know, your great uncle have been a part of this whole process. And where we are now is where we're bringing let me yes, go ahead. Okay, well, that wasn't a teen. Yeah, that's what you want to talk about. The. Okay, no. That's what I'll be ready for tomorrow. I think tomorrow is Friday, right? How about the day after that, Saturday? Okay, we'll be ready to go Saturday. Saturday. See, Friday is our Juma, so we'll be busy tomorrow. We might after Juma, we might go down to demonstration. Huh? That's perfect. But I'll be ready. Just send them, and we'll work. And I'm glad that that's what your focus is too. Is that economic enterprise zone? You remember, n- nobody did that during the '60s. Nobody did that. Nobody. The people that were the Martin Luther Kingers, they couldn't do it because they killed them too quick. But remember, Chicago, he couldn't do it anyway. But I'll tell you something about Chicago. I don't know if you ever heard of what used to be Blackstone Rangers, a Peace Stone Nation, and then Al Rukin. Okay, Al Rukin was friends of ours because in 1983, Imam Jamil H. Rap Brown was leader of his organization was incorporating all kind of people, and that group, Al Rukin, was participating a lot with Imam Jamil. It was two groups within that group. One that wanted to stay like they was, and one that was really into the Sunnah. And I went to Chicago a couple of times, and you talking about being proud of Negroes. Those are the only Negroes. I'd be at one building, and I'd look up, it was 16 stories high. 16 stories that Negroes own. I go to another joint, and they was kind of militant, like organized. They'd have everybody was General so-and-so. I mean, but they acted like a real militant organization. And they go there, and of course, it'd be an iron door, a steel door. And then you'd go in there, you look up, 10 floors. Everywhere I went, they owned. That is the wealthiest at that time. They all in jail now, not all of them, but most of them. Been in jail for a long time because they was talking with Gaddafi and what have you. And they wasn't living fully up to Islam, halal and haram. I'll tell you what that means soon. And that group told me that when Martin Luther King came to Chicago, they said 40,000 people greeted him, and he said 30,000 of them was ours. That's why old Coon went there. Not Coon, I don't want to call him that. But old Messy Jesse, why you think he went to Chicago? He studied Dr. King, and he said, this is a spot. And remember, in his early years, he played off Blackstone Rangers. Look, the longer you listen to us, you're going to think that 95% of the people are hypocrites. And so if it's 94% of them, that's okay. You won't be wrong. You won't be that wrong. That's one of the things that keep you moving right. Imagine if everybody cuts your throat all the time. You keep smiling and keep walking and keep rolling. Now, about Islam. Islam Islam is deep, but it's ethics, it's morals. When we get into some of the other groups, like Iranians, the last program in San Francisco, I told them 3 years ago, I told them the world is coming your way, so you're going to have ethics and morals. You're going to have to make sure that everybody know when I join you, my family and all that's going to be, you're not going to abuse us and use us like they do. It ain't just Afghanis get abused and misused. It's not just Negroes. People that run things, they look at other people, what good will they be for me? For us. Okay? A lot of people, there was elements of that in a lot of things that we were doing. We've always known that about humanity. That's why we have 8 pieces of property here and almost the same in California that we own. Why? Because we know the numbers. Eventually, people get tired of you, or the offer comes and you're going to refuse. I'm not going to do that. You can look and see how our friends approached us. You could see where they went. They're on their way back now. But think about it. When I'm busted upside of the head, think about it. Think about it. When I'm busted upside of the head, they have a program from a sister that's popular over there in the media, and they hollering her name on purpose to avoid my name. And I'm busted upside, right? Huh? It's clear. It's clear. They have people over on the other side of town. You can see where they're coming from. That they pray outside because they know you can't build a community out on the sidewalk. It's just, you can't do it. They don't want to. They've been out there. Okay? So what we're saying is, what happened to the movement? If you take people like Messie Jesse and them, they tried to cut off or inherit the cream of Martin Luther King's expression. Remember, 40,000 people came out for Martin Luther King. 30,000 of them was Black Stone Rain. That's what they was then. 30,000. They told me that personally. You got to remember, we have touched on anybody you're talking about. I mean, we were all friends, And then they recognize people with a certain background. Oh, you so-and-so. Yeah, that's so-and-so out there in California. And then you're home free. Not that we was doing the same thing, because I know they wouldn't do what I was doing. But the people said they did, but they didn't. Anyway, I'll be ready for your questions. And don't be bashful. The last thing I'm going to say is this. We signed on for this to do good. So far, so good. We don't care nothing about the system. We don't care nothing about the odds. We don't care nothing about none of that. We're just going to make our effort to do right and to do good, whether the people or the system like it or not. I have a feeling that the historical process is heading our way. That's the feeling. So thank you very much, and I'll be ready tomorrow. Just text me the questions. Saturday, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. I wanted you to come because I wanted somebody here that remembers those, you know what I mean? Those transitions. I hope I didn't call you too late or anything. Yeah, but that's what I wanted. And I'm going to try to fill Brother Tufel in on all of this stuff.